we're feeling ready to go. The kids are feeling ready to go based on our conversations with them, and I'm excited personally. Yeah.
Yeah, as a couple alumni of the CC, it's nice to be able to shed the light that this league deserves.
Welcome to episode 271 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. Welcome to opening weekend. And I don't know about you, but I've already started scouting out how much baseball I'll be watching this weekend alone. And I'm not going to lie, it's not just going to be the MLB stuff, but the Canadian College Baseball Conference is also getting underway this weekend. The CCBC season preview extravaganza is right around the corner. But first, let's take a look at the big leagues for a second, and we'll obviously be keeping an eye on the Chicago White Sox as Calgary's Michael Soroka is slated to start Saturday against the Detroit Tigers. It'll be his first regular season start since his trade from Atlanta during the offseason. He looked good this spring, and here's hoping he's able to put all those injuries in the rearview mirror, and he has a stellar season on the south side. A few other players with Alberta ties are on opening day rosters, including former Okotoks Dogs hurler Andrew Kittredge with the St. Louis Cardinals, former Dawgs and Edmonton Prospects two-way star Cody Funderburk is with the Minnesota Twins, and former Saskatoon Yellow Jacket Marco Gonzalez is with the Pittsburgh Pirates. As we usually do, we will have a full rundown of where some Alberta-born and or trained players end up in their respective organizations on our website in the days ahead. That'll include Tristan Peters, Matt Kootenay, Damiano Palmaggiani, Adam Macco, Eric Sabrowski, Gavin Logan, and yes, a whole bunch more. In other news around Alberta's baseball world this week, congratulations to Cardston's Ty Schaefer on being named the Canadian Baseball Network's College Player of the Week. The Prairie Baseball Academy alum went the distance for William Woods University in an 8-1 win over Hannibal LaGrange. He scattered 8 hits and struck out 10 in the victory. Now stop us if you've heard this one before. AHP Academy product Reece Hemmerling is pretty good at baseball. The Beaumont product has been great with Barton Community College and kept his strong season going with a complete game gem over the past week, allowing just 6 hits, 1 walk, and 9 strikeouts in an 8-0 win over Pratt. For his efforts, he was once again named the Kansas Jayhawk Community College Conference Pitcher of the Week. More accolades are rolling in as well for AHP teammate Cole Huebner. Coming off a 5-inning, 8-strikeout performance against St. Cloud Tech last week, the Indian Hills Community College hurler upped the ante with a 5-inning, 10-strikeout outing in a big win over Southwestern. As a result, Huebner's been named the National Junior College Pitcher of the Week. Goldale's Seth Gurr continues to deal with the University of Montevallo Falcons in a 5-1 win over Miles last week. He went 6 1/3, allowing 1 run on 5 hits while striking out 7. And someone should probably tell Brendan Luther that he might need to save some of his offense this spring for another summer with the Okotoks Dogs. The Mississauga native and Dogs reigning playoff MVP is up to his old tricks again with Bellevue University, especially as they put together a 14-game winning streak recently. He's now hitting .361 with a pair of home runs and 20 RBI in 28 games. In other news, details around the Canadian Future Showcase are starting to be made public. The annual tournament at Rogers Centre in Toronto sees the best high school talent in the country come together for a few days. If you'll remember last year, Alberta dominated with Simon Baker of Weber Academy being named the tournament MVP, while Nathan Flewelling of St. Joe's Academy won the Home Run Derby. This year's event is set to begin September 17th, and to prepare for it, Blue Jays Academy will be heading out on tour to scout some of the talent that will eventually be named to the rosters. The lone Alberta date penciled in so far is July 9th in Okotoks. And a couple of Wednesday afternoon news drops as Baseball Canada has named its 35-man roster for the Junior National Team Extended Spring Training Camp from April 17th to 27th. Congratulations going out to the Albertans on the list, including William Labonte, Seamus Ryan, Michael Yusupchuk, Nathan Flewelling, Simon Baker, and Eric Hartman, as well as several others who train here, including Leo Cote and Tim Pisenton. And the other piece of news coming in on Wednesday was from the West Coast League's Edmonton Riverhawks as they've unveiled their roster for the coming season. It features 11 returners from last year's squad and 40 newcomers. 14 Albertans are on the roster, including friends of the show Reece Hemmerling, Halen Knoll, Ryan Cousy, and Jackson Sharon. All right, that was a lot of news, and we got a lot more shows still to come here. It is time for the CCBC season preview extravaganza, and I'm going to warn you right now, in case you didn't see it in the show notes, this one is going to be just a tad longer than usual. I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole of eventually turning the show into 3 hours long, but this one deserves to go a little bit longer. We have one guest from each of Alberta's teams set to join us later on, including Ethan Webster of the University of Calgary Dinos, Zaden Wake of the Prairie Baseball Academy Dawgs, and Reece Devlin of the Edmonton Collegiate Hawks. But we'll start things off with a couple of CCBC insiders. They are Logan Wedgewood and Sean Robbins, also known as The Battery. They were pumping out the content, especially on Instagram and through their own podcast back in 2022, but then they went dark last season. Much to our surprise and delight, we've seen them back at it again to start the 2024 campaign, so I thought I'd tap them in to get some insights into the coming season.
Gents, thanks so much for joining us. Let's fire right into it. And how excited are you to get things going and see the CCBC take to the field?
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. We've been thinking about this for months now. We first approached the league to try to get something worked out, 2-3 months ago. So the fact that it's all kind of coming to, I mean, for the first time since I was a player and a coach, I felt like the buzz of the upcoming season. So I think just the fact that it's opening day about to happen and we're feeling ready to go, the kids are feeling ready to go based on our conversations with them. And I'm excited personally. Yeah.
Yeah, as a couple alumni of the CC, it's nice to be able to shed the light that this league deserves, especially with a good team over here. We're excited for the season to kick off this Friday.
Let's fire into maybe last season first off. And the defending champions this year are the University of Calgary Dinos. We'll start with you, Wedge, on this one. Did it take you by surprise that they won it all last year?
Well, I can tell you what the Calgary Dinos meant to the league when I was a player, and it was a punching bag for the most part. Back then, the league was 5 teams when I was playing, and I played in 14-15 or maybe 15-16. It's been a while now. Mm-hmm. But with only 5 teams and the travel being what it was, they would play PBA half the season, and that would really hurt their standings because PBA was just a powerhouse every year at that point. And they had a hard time. I think they had a hard time recruiting at that point because they were getting beat up by PBA all the time. So when you look at stats, when you're a kid, when you're 18 years old, looking at where you want to go to school and you see that the team you're talking to gets beat up all the time, that hurts to want to try to go there, I think. Mm-hmm. But now, I mean, I know Cam pretty well personally, Cam Williams. So it wasn't that surprising that they were being very competitive. Maybe it was surprising that they won so soon, but that's the best part about the CC championship tournament is that it's really anybody's ball game. Like it's a complete crapshoot going into that tournament. Everybody's got a shot. It really depends on who's playing well.
From your standpoint there, Sean, talk a little bit about what you saw out of that team and what made them so successful in 2023.
Well, you know what? I think Cam does have a lot to offer with him stepping in there. He was one of the best hitters that the CC saw for a while when he was playing there. So the expertise that he has on the diamond translated very well, very quickly, as Wedgie said, which I think was the big shock was how soon they were able to actually bring home that championship under Cam. He aside from his experience on the diamond, he's got the mentality side of it too. I've only actually worked with Cam a couple of times, but he brings something that an older coach doesn't always have. He's got that younger man's coaching style to him, which is great. He's a little bit more lenient, and I don't know. It's Wedgie and I have been talking about how exciting it's going to be to watch the Dinos play this year. They have the target on their back when they've never had that before. So it's going to be interesting to see how Cam and the Dinos respond to that. The returning vets. So
I was interested to talk to, we're going to have Ethan Webster on the show in a little bit here. And he mentioned that the idea that maybe they're still not getting the respect that they deserve. I mean, they're number 3 in the rankings as an example. Wedge, when you think about that, do you still think that they're maybe an underdog to a certain extent?
I think that when it comes to OC and PBA, they've been established for quite a few years now. Like, when I first transferred to OC, that was the very beginning of what they were starting to do. They were in Calgary's place a couple years prior to that. And I know Jeff really well. So like I can say that he has taken that opportunity and he's taken that job very, very seriously. And he's been very motivated for a very long time to try and make sure that that program is moving in the right direction, not just wins and losses, but also the success of the players. And I think when that kind of comes to, that starts to lead into a really good situation. So, and then PBA, like they get great recruits because they're very upfront about who they are. They're a 2-year program. They'll send you to a good school afterwards. So when you talk about like a high school mentality about should I go to the CCBC or should I go down south, it's a easier pill to swallow, I think, for like a high school kid that may be buzzing with a little bit of attention or a little bit of an ego where they're about to graduate and they, I remember when I was in high school, and Sean, you probably agree, we both went the JUCO route briefly. And when I was in high school, I was like, I'm not going to CCBC. There's no way. I'm so good at baseball, but then you realize like the CCBC is a very qualified league. It's a very good league. It's filled with good players. So I think the PBA is a really nice middle ground for that high school mentality where it's, okay, I want to go to a competitive place. I want to play for a competitive program. And then Hubka also having like a scout certificate. He's just signed somebody. So I think it's like those two programs, they've established themselves for what they are. And for Calgary now, I think that they're very much so on their way of establishing who they are. But like we've said with Cam, like I think that since he's young and since he's only a couple years in and they just won that first championship, that it's going to be a year or so until they get that consistent, like repeatable recognition for the program that they're creating. But their recruit class this year, I know a ton of those kids that they've recruited this year. Cam has asked me a ton of times for who he should be talking to and that kind of stuff in the Lower Mainland. I know their recruit class this upcoming year for next season is going to be pretty stacked, especially for those kids to stick around for a couple of years. And that's one of the main strengths for a program like Calgary is their university is top notch. So the players that go there have education in mind at the forefront, and they're also very talented. So that's where the strength of the Canadian League, I think, really sits is, are you like if you're recruiting academic kids who are also really good at baseball and watch them just develop over the next few years, then your program is going to be better suited. But if you're just recruiting kids that are pretty good at baseball, then it's going to be a little bit different of a look.
Yep.
Sean, when you look at that roster, it's going to be like picking favorite kids here, but do you have someone that's got your eye right now over at the University of Calgary that you think fans should be paying attention to this year?
Well, it's funny you ask if you're going to be meeting with Ethan Webster here. He was a guy on our list to watch. He showed a pretty impressive season last year. So Ethan Webster is pretty much our top guy to watch out of the Dinos this year.
Very cool. Moving on, we did touch on PBA a little bit. When I chatted with a couple of the guys down there, including Hubs, who I've known for a while now, one of the themes that I kept hearing out of them was unfinished business. They felt like last year was a missed opportunity. They thought last year's roster was maybe one of the best they ever had, and yet they came up empty-handed at the end of the year. In both of your eyes, what do they got to do differently this year, this time around, to come away champions for the first time in what feels like forever?
Yeah, I can't agree more with that roster being completely stacked. Like we've been looking through the stats and like we've been slowly compiling an all-time leaders for stat in different categories for the CCBC, and like Carter Clarout was an absolute beast. He's one of the best offensive players that have ever played in the CCBC. They had a number of really good hitters. They had a number of really good arms. And when you look at the whole team stats for basically every category, pitching and hitting, PBA was top 2. So I can understand, that mentality of like, we were the team to beat. I wonder if there's some strength to that tournament format in being the underdog, because the way that the tournament format works is it's double elimination. If you win every game, you got the easy road. You go 4-0, you're laughing to the final, you're good to go. As soon as you lose that one game, you're on the ropes. And that's like, so they've changed it from when we used to play where it was a round robin and all this kind of like a typical format. They've made it a little bit more competitive. So there's no punting of games. There's no like, we're 2-0. We don't have to pitch our best guy here. You have to keep winning. So when it comes to PBA and you have a target on your back like that, you're going to see everybody's ace. So I think you're just entering that tournament at a difficult spot where teams want to beat you. You're the team that people want to beat. So I think going into the final, you can't change that. That's just going to be that's their life. That's PBA life. You're going to get people coming after you every single time that you step on the field. I remember when I was a player, we got PBA on the calendar. That's the one I'm circling. Like, I want to beat PBA. And I think every other team agrees with that. And I can see that being exhausting if you're the PBA. So I think for them, going into a championship type mentality is just thinking like, we don't have to beat everybody. We just have to be ourselves, because if we're ourselves, then we're going to compete. But if we try to beat everybody and we take their energy and go that way, then thinking as a coach, my main idea here, my main message would be like, just control our game, just play our game and we'll be just fine.
Sean, when you look at that roster, what sticks out in your mind as far as not just the talent pool, but also from the standpoint of they're always strong in every facet? Do you see that same thing developing this time around?
I sure do. We've discussed over the last week or so, Wedgie and I, that the turnover with players at PBA is always consistent. It is a 2-year program, but once you buy into PBA, you know what you're bought into. The program, JV through varsity, you know what you're a part of. From the outside looking in, as Wedgie's kind of saying, it's easy to put pressure on yourself playing PBA. At one point, they 7-time champs in a row. But from PBA looking out, you can't carry that weight that at one time we did win 7 times in a row. We just have to go out there and play our best game every single day. And that's what they're good at doing every year. So that would be pretty frustrating with the roster they had last year and consistently every year.
Curious, Sean, who's on your to watch list this time around for the PBA Dogs?
Oh, who do we have? It was tough to pick out a PBA. It's never an easy choice, but we had a couple of guys.
I know that I had Mark Brisson.
Mark Brisson.
He's an Edmonton kid. I know his brother a little bit. Good baseball family. Everybody plays baseball. He's a fast kid. I liked him because I thought he was a spark plug. And with PBA, they usually have some bangers, but where their team really, like the best PBA teams that I've seen, they always have like 2 or 3 just absolute gritty speedsters, and everything works around those guys.
They get on base a lot too, which is the other piece to that puzzle, is they always have those 1 or 2 guys that aren't just speedsters, but are also on base consistently and just giving the catchers something to think about and just making it all work. Moving on here, let's talk a little bit about the Edmonton Collegiate Hawks. This is a team, I chatted with Reece Devlin actually just before we all hopped on a call, and he said, we're going to be sneaky good again. And in the short amount of time that program's been together, they've really kind of come together under Jake Lanferman. In your eyes, what's working for that team so far?
I think Jake Lanferman is working for that team. I love that kid. We've known each other forever. We went to the same high school, same academy. We played in the youth at the, I don't know what it's called, the Elite Baseball League, the Alberta. They used to be called the Norwest. That's a name drop for anybody that has been around. But we played against each other. He was a Sherwood Park guy. I was a Edmonton guy. Like, I've known him forever. And then when he got to go down south and play college ball, he had an awesome career. Then he came back and played for UBC. He continued that awesome career. He also dealt with a lot of injuries when he was playing. He had a couple, I think he had one in particular that took him out for a little while. And I think when you go through that, you learn more about like the game because you see it from a different angle. So, I was a catcher. Sean was a catcher. We get to see the game from a lot of different angles. Sean and I were a 1-2 combo punch for the Edmonton prospects for, I think, 2 years. Was it 2 years?
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, 2 years. And we, that's the best part about being a good combo is you get to sit on the bench, you get to watch your other guy catch. And then when it's our turn, then we get to swap information. And I think with Lanny, like he was an outfielder. So he's the dog, right? He gets to go out there and be the best player. It's good for him. Must be nice. But being that brief or that time where you're injured, I think you get to touch in more with your teammates and you get to see the game in a different way and you learn more about the game in a different way. And it's kind of a blessing in disguise in that way. But I think like he's obviously gained a lot of trust in that area. He's obviously come into it in his own, despite being only in his 2nd year as a head coach. So or 3rd year now. I guess this would be his 3rd year, but like he's now the WCL head coach. He's obviously doing the right things. So I also know him as a person, and as a person, he's super relatable, super funny, just really down to earth. One of the guys, he's able to lead from within rather than lead from the top down. And I think for a young coach in a young group, that's massively important. And I think Lanny is a big difference maker. And Sean, I'm gonna let you talk about the roster because I talked enough, and you know those guys.
I do.
Well, and I was going to ask about that side of it. How big, Sean, is it going to be for that team to have Halen Knoll on that
Oh,
in that rotation amongst a host of other guys who've been around the team for a while?
absolutely. Just a couple of vets from, guys that have played in the States, that played in the West Coast League or the WCBL. Halen's coming off pitcher of the year in the West Coast League this year. So to have him, to have some other transfers coming in this year as well, not only on the mound, there's going to be a ton of leaders within that group. I was able to work with the team, and I actually just moved out to BC, but I was able to work with the Collegiate Hawks this fall. I was helping Nathan Coffin out with some of their catchers there, and I got to see how Nathan worked with the group, mainly the catchers, but the group as a whole. And I really got to see how Jake led that team firsthand. And he does a very good job of leading within. He's a very respectable leader. So
I'm curious from both of your perspectives because you've both been in the trenches and been players in the league, and obviously there's been a shift across the league. There's the tried and true guys, right? Like you've got the Hubkas at PBA, you've got Chadwick at TRU as an example. You've got some guys who've been around a while, and then you've got some new blood in there as well with guys like Cam Williams, who's not necessarily new to the league, but new to the coaching realm, for example. And Jake's not new to the league, but he's newer to the coaching realm. Talk about that difference in ideology and the team identity piece that comes along with the old school versus the new school.
Yeah, that's a really great point. That's actually a conversation piece that Sean and I have had a million times because as the farther we dig into these teams and the more we get to kind of learn about them from a piece of paper in front of us, then we make our guesses and our assumptions about how things are going. Fortunately, we know a lot of people, so it's like, okay, my cousin is the new head coach of VIU. So I get to look at that and be like, wow, okay, so Nathan is now the head coach of VIU. I know exactly what he's going to do. I know exactly what he's going to bring to the table. That's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see that take place. And then when you move over, like we don't know Ethan Fox. I don't know him personally, but he's the new head coach for Victoria, and he's brand new. He was their pitching coach, and he's been around, and he's been with the Harbor Cats as well. And then like there's four, and then Jepson is the new head coach for UFV, and Jepson is just an absolute stud when he was a player. Like he was the most feared hitter that I've ever caught behind. I've never seen a guy step into the box and been like, holy crap, this guy's about to hit a bomb off us. I know it. And it's just like, and then Cam, like I used to call Cam, I used to joke that Cam was like the Miguel Cabrera of the CCBC because he would hit 350 without sweating. He would go play defense. He'd come back. He'd joke around on the bases. Like I think a great benefit to all of these young coaches that we've talked about is that they're all obviously that young presence is nice, but they're not like immature young. They're young in a way that is like they've been chosen to lead for a reason. And I know with Nathan, he's been with VIU for 10 years almost. He played his full career there. He played under both of the previous head coaches. So he was able to kind of see how the operation worked. He was pitching coach there. He was the number 2 guy. He got to learn everything, the ins and outs. And I think what a lot of people probably don't realize is that the head coach for these programs is also the like everything else for these programs. They're the balancer of budgets. They're the recruiter, they're the hiring staff, like they're everything. So I think what people don't realize is that these head coaches for these programs are everything in these programs. They don't have the money to hire a bunch of people to do all these little jobs. So it takes a lot more than just like writing a lineup card and controlling the culture. There's a whole lot more that goes into it. And I think for the 5 young guys, that's something that they'll figure out if they haven't already, but also they'll figure out just that like, it can be easy and it can be not easy, and that can change day to day. And I think having that flexibility and understanding that flexibility is the way to go about it. And I think that's what you learn from guys like Ray Chadwick and guys like Jeff White and guys like Todd Hubka is that they've done it forever, but none of those three guys are the guys that are going to run out onto the field and yelling at an umpire. None of those three guys are the ones that are going to yell at their team after a bad day. None of those three guys are the ones that are going to let their emotions go too high up or too far down. They're very level-headed, all three of them. And I think when it comes to understanding how the whole program works and how the whole process works, you start to see that some things are bigger than other things. And like I was fortunate to coach with Jeff for 3 years, and he's very open about telling me how everything's going and teaching me about how the program works and explaining why we do things a certain way. When you don't get that privilege when you're a player and you don't get to see it, you just play. So the young guys, I think they'll learn, and they're all mature enough and smart enough and good enough at what they're doing to step into that. And I hope that with 5 people basically under the age of 30 running these teams, that there's going to be there's going to be a learning curve, of course, but they're also going to step into this place where the CCBC is just going to like really start to snowball into a league that is run by accomplished people that understand the job.
Sean, I wanted to expand on that and talk a little bit about the league as a whole when you have that kind of dynamic, because we mentioned earlier how the doormats used to be the Dinos as an example, and even the first couple of years the Hawks had some troubles, and each team has kind of dealt with that, except for those teams that have established roots. How important is it to have a full roster of teams for this league that all have an established base under them, that have that that kind of team mentality and team identity behind them, so they can keep building upon it versus trying to start over year after year after year?
Absolutely. I mean, talk about curb appeal now versus when you were entering the league, Wedgie. 5 teams. It's especially only 2 in Alberta there, so it's huge, especially now that there's an offer for education too. U of C, Okanagan College, UBCO. You can go to U of A. So it's not just, as Wedgie was touching on earlier, it's not just a league of decent baseball players. We have some really well-rounded baseball players who have gone on to some really good career opportunities with the schooling and education that's offered league-wide now. So team-wise, league-wise, there's a lot more opportunity, but it just continues to be more well-rounded as the years go on. Edmonton had a very tough time getting going, and then right when they had their feet underneath them, COVID came in and swept them out again. So they've kudos to them. They've been very persistent in getting this up. You can go to any school in Edmonton and play for the Collegiate Hawks. You have good opportunity down in Lethbridge, Okanagan. There's no shortage right now, and it'd be interesting to see with these young coaches stepping in if there's going to be some league expansion here in the next couple of years.
I know there's been some rumblings here, there, and everywhere, but we'll find out before too long whether any of them actually come to fruition. Another interesting point that I saw was you've mentioned the ability of some of these players to go and play down south, and they're not just role players by any stretch. You talk about the most recent Canadian Baseball Network Player of the Week is Ty Schaefer, who just happened to spend the last couple of seasons at PBA as an example, right? So and Halen Noel went down to UMary for a season. Like there's clearly the dividing line between good college programs down south and a good college league in Canada. That line is getting ever so tight, ever so smaller. Boys, before we let you go, I got a couple more questions for you. One happens to be about the return. You kind of went quiet in 2023, and then all of a sudden I see some content, and I'm excited. So tell me about the ebbs and flows of being a CCBC content driver.
Yeah, I mean, in 2022, I kind of took the initiative, and I had help from a friend, McGregor Sharp, and he would help me just chop up video and stuff. But 2022 was all voluntary. I just really wanted to shine light on the league and give back in a way. And then last year we were really hoping to work out a deal. Unfortunately, I was also in school, so I was like just really busy doing that. So it had to be kind of a really good fit to make it work. And then this year we were able to meet up early enough to talk with all the coaches to ask them really if they wanted to do it or not, because anybody who's created media or understands like the time process that it takes to go through video and chop it up and put it together and do voiceovers and stuff, it's a time commitment. It's not as easy as it seems, I think, sometimes. But And there's always mistakes. There's always mistakes. I had one episode in 2022. I won't get into it too much, but I made it and then I deleted stuff because my hard drive was full. And then all of that was gone, and I couldn't use that episode anymore because it was all corrupted files. And then I was like, okay, well, I guess I got to restart. And that just it happens. Like if you've done any video editing, you realize at some point there's a problem with your files. And so yeah, it's a big job, but we're so pumped to do it because it's needed. Like we've been talking this whole time, like what you just said about this league becoming one that is comparable to the States. It truly is, and it's a league that we care about a lot. It's a league that gave me a second chance at college baseball after not doing well in junior college at all. It's a league that gives a lot of people second chances. Like we look at a guy like Trevor Brigden, who is one of the lone still professional CCBC alumni who's in AAA looking for a spot on a major league roster. He came to the CCBC after getting hurt in a JUCO, and he was hurt. He didn't really know what his baseball career was going to look like. He had to rehab his elbow. He came back. He started gaining velo. He asserted himself in the gym. He got innings, and it turned into a spot for him where he was getting attention. He ended up getting drafted. And I think that story is more common than I think gets told. And there's also the stories of kids who come in at 18 that have no idea what they're doing. They don't want to, their parents don't want to go spend 30 grand for them to go play at a United States JUCO that has terrible education. And so they go to a Canadian college. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to major in. They don't know what they're doing. They've never lived on their own. They don't know how to do any of this stuff. They barely know how to boil water. And then they get to go and they slowly get to develop into a grown-up human being that is a contributing citizen to society. And I think that's where the CCBC like really lives, is that it's a development factory for good human beings. And while that's happening, it's a development factory for baseball players. So they get to choose later in life. Do I want to pursue this or do I want to pursue that? And that's where the strength of CCBC lives. And that's why we want to make this content, because like we want people to realize that if these kids do want to go the baseball route after they're done playing collegiate, we want them to have that chance, whether that be overseas playing for baseball jobs overseas, or whether that be helping out in collegiate or coaching or just volunteering at a little league, like anything that it is, as long as they're staying in the game, that's going to strengthen Canadian baseball in general. So I think that's really why we're doing it. And that's why we're excited to do it this year.
Sean, I got to ask, what's it mean to be able to give back to a league that's given you so much in the past?
It's our biggest goal with this is to shed light on a league that deserves it. All the coaching staff that we've been able to work with and compete against, it's nice to still stick around that community. And on top of all the other reasons that Logan just mentioned, it's a community, and we're proud to still be a part of that community, even if it's at this moment digitally, virtually. We still feel connected with guys in Kelowna, guys in PBA, all over Alberta. And it's just from doing this, which is essentially our passion project.
It's so cool to be able to be a part of that community, and I share that love and admiration that you guys have for it as well. Final question for both of you. It's one we ask everyone. I'm sure you've been ready for it, maybe even written out an answer, because I know you're frequent listeners. What does the game of baseball mean to you?
The game of baseball gave me confidence. That's what the game of baseball means to me. It was a way to learn something I'm good at and build confidence in that way. And it was also a way for me to be myself and compete in a healthy way and be around my best friends for long periods of time.
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like baseball is what at a very young age, up until right now, gave me purpose. Even though there's times where, especially exiting the game baseball, I kind of lost that feeling of what my purpose was. I tried to discover a different purpose, but here I am right back involved in the baseball community. That purpose has been found again, kind of reignited with what I do now, and that's I make videos. And I'm really happy to be doing that with Wedgie and the Battery, right back in the baseball community. It's kind of ironic how my life has just always led right back to the diamond.
Just keeps roping you in.
It's on.
Little by little.
Can't get out.
Fantastic. You can't, once you're in, you're never getting out.
Right.
Gents, it has been an absolute pleasure to slice and dice with you on the CCBC scene. Looking forward to checking back in with you soon. Thanks so much for taking the time this afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Joe.
Now on to the players, and we'll start with Ethan Webster and the defending champion, University of Calgary Dinos. He was impressive last season, going 3-0 with a 2.36 ERA and 9 appearances, including 7 starts. The BC right-hander will be looking to improve upon those stats, while also help guide the Dinos into some unfamiliar terrain, notably trying to repeat.
Ethan, first off, let's ask this question. How does it feel to have a target on your back now that you are the reigning CCBC champions?
It's different, for sure, because, we were used to going and, taking it to guys, right, and, being that team that it's nobody expects to do anything and, be that sneaky team that's going to show up and give you a tough game, play hard, and take it to you, right? And now there are guys that want to do that to us. They want to show up and they want to, beat us. People that are, I don't know, it's they didn't think we were going to win. I don't think anybody thought we were going to win. And now guys are we want to take it to UC. We want to show them that it was a fluke, right? It shouldn't have happened, and that we're the better team. And it's exciting, right? It's exciting to prove guys wrong again. And I think that's the biggest thing. Is I'm just excited to keep proving people wrong.
What did you guys learn about yourselves last year that you can take into this year? Because it felt like there was almost that moment of it clicks for you. Hey, we've got a good team. Let's see how far this goes last year. What did you learn that made you go, okay, we got this, and that you can transfer it over to this year a little bit earlier so you've got that sense of we got this?
I think it was either the 4th or the 5th inning of that first game against TRU in the playoffs, and our bats just came alive. A lot of the season, our hitting wasn't the best. We would get guys on, and we wouldn't be able to string a lot of stuff together. And then it was just a team approach of get that guy over, get on any way you can. And we really strung it together every game. It was we were down against TRU. I think we were down against PBA at one point. We were down against Vic, and games got close, especially in the finals. And we just kept finding ways to get on base, and our bullpen kept fighting to keep the score as close as we could. And I don't know, I think everyone just realized that do your job and the guy behind you will do his job, and it was just one guy after the other approach, and I think that was the biggest thing.
You and I were talking off air about some of the changes. You got probably 7 guys who are gone from last year's team. I know it's still early, you're still kind of going through the motions of the preseason, but do you think that you've been able to replace them, 1, and 2, what do you see out of this current crop of new recruits that you've been able to check out in the last few weeks here?
I'm going to be bold here. I think this is our best team on paper, at least that I've seen. We lost a lot of guys, good team guys, good ball players too, but it was really good leaders. We have lots of guys that have stepped up and taken that role, and just really been good role models for the younger guys. And we got a lot of arms that came in, especially a lot of lefties. We've never really had that many lefties. And it was really good to get those guys in. We got a lot of hitters, some plus pop, some plus speed. And I think they fit perfectly in the lineup. We got 2 great infielders from BC. We got a couple good arms from Alberta, Saskatchewan, all over the place. And I think they're going to do great. And I'm really excited to see what they do come season.
Talk a little bit about your personal role on this team. Do you see it changing? Do you see it evolving, especially now heading into year 3? You're kind of the veteran presence out there. What are you hoping to bring to the table?
It's hard, right? Because I came here as someone that was not expected to start in my first year. My first year, my goal was I just want to make the team. I just want to get innings in here or there. And then we had a couple injuries, and sure enough, I'm slotted into the starting rotation. And then I wasn't really the ace. And then there comes that OC weekend first year, and it was okay, I can do this. I can compete at this level. And then same thing last year, was just building on success from the first year. And then now I'm back here again. I'm looking to start a game every weekend, and and it's hard to, take that responsibility to be okay, these guys are looking to me now. It's not like I'm looking to these guys for advice. They're looking to me because I've been here twice already. And setting a good example, not letting my emotions get the best of me, right? And just staying calm no matter what, and just giving it my all every game. And I know my goal is not really this year to improve on my own self. It's to improve on the team, right? Like last year, we didn't have a great record during the regular season. I want to extend my appearances, do everything I can to get my team deeper into games and help us win. Like that's the biggest thing, is I just want to be the better version of myself so we can be the better version of the Dinos.
Do you think there's I don't want to call it a burden, but maybe a different kind of expectation with this team now? Do you feel it? I mean, it's weird even looking at preseason rankings, take them as you may, to see the defending champion sitting number 3, right? So do you feel like there's a different expectation on yourselves, or do you still feel like you're a bit of the underdog to a certain extent?
I still feel like we're counted out a bit for sure. I think we were not given enough credit for our playoff run there. I don't think we're given enough credit for the talent we have. And I'm excited to prove guys wrong about that, right? But obviously it is pressure on me whenever I step out there, that there's an expectation from my teammates, from my coaches, that I'm going to go out there and do what I do, right? And I love that pressure. I love that. That's my favorite thing, and it's going out there and proving the people that doubt me wrong and the people that believe in me right. And that's the biggest thing for me, is, proving the people that back me right and myself right, because I know I can compete. I know the level I can compete at, and I just want to stay there, and I want to keep getting better.
When you look ahead to the season, do you have any dates circled on your calendar, given all that's kind of transpired over the last year and a little, and especially after that playoff run? I know that things got a little chippy near the end, for example. Did you look at the schedule when it was released and said, that's a game that we're going to want to step up for, kind of thing?
I think it's a home-and-home series against PBA. I believe that's weekend 2. Those series are always fun. And it's competitive. It's a battle of Alberta, right? It's wanting to go out there and take it to them, and I know they're coming out and they're wanting to take it to us, and they're going to want to hang a number on us. We're going to want to do the same to them, and it's going to be a pitching battle. It's going to be a hitting battle, and we're going to fight tooth and nail, right? Like, they're a good ball team. They're a good ball team every year. They always have great recruiting, and I know there's going to be heat behind that, and I'm just really, really excited for that set of games.
Talk a little bit about the culture that's being built here in your eyes. You and I touched on it again. We had a long actually we talked back in October, I think it was, and then we got to sitting and chatting for like 45 minutes before we even hit record on this one. Talk a little bit about the culture being built here. For the longest time, it felt like the Dinos were a team that was sort of missing a direction, missing a vision. Do you get the sense that it's here now, that they've gone over the hump, and now this is the identity of this team is finally upon us?
I do think we're here. I think we're here to stay too. I think we are now found ourselves as like the team that's relaxed, we're having fun, but we're also locked in. We're focused, right? We know what we got to do, and everyone's got their role, right? It's like everyone out there is here because we love this game, right? Like, we love playing baseball, and it's not a job. It's like a hobby, right? And it's like we're out there to enjoy ourselves and to play the best baseball we can. And it's like, I think a lot of guys, a lot of other teams in the league are too like tense, right? Like, they're like, this is huge, this is the be all end all, and I'm like, we're out here playing a game, and it's such a privilege to be playing baseball after high school, right? And it's just, I think everyone here appreciates that and respects that, and it's just out there giving their best every game.
Take us inside the locker room, the dugout, wherever Cam and the coaching staff is. What are some of the messages heading into this season? What are some of the things that you're hearing constantly, some of the themes that you're starting to hear from that staff and from Cam as we get ever so close to the regular season?
I love this question. I think the biggest thing from Cam is always stay on us. Stay on us. It's like shut out all the other distractions, the umpires, the fans, the other teams, all the chippiness. It's us. Like, it's us against ourselves, and that's always been, I think, his biggest thing. And it's just keeping the focus on doing what we have to do, and everything else will work itself out.
I want to talk a little bit about your journey, as mentioned, a BC guy growing up. How cool is it to be able to take your game to the next level and look back on the journey that has been to this point, and the trials and tribulations and travels that have been involved in playing the game you love?
It's surreal, really. I never thought I'd be here, right? Like, I went through high school and I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and one thing led to another, and I'm here, and We're going on bus trips every weekend. I'm seeing places, I've never seen. I went to Saskatchewan last summer. Never been there in my life. And I'd gone from this really small world that I'd gotten used to, and now it's like you're meeting new people, you're going to new places, but I'm getting to continue to play baseball. I'm just so grateful. I love it here. I love getting to keep playing. I love Alberta, mainly. I love Calgary. I'm just super excited I have more time to keep going.
How cool is it? I was over at Absolute the other day, and I saw the 2023 banner, and I kind of made a joke about the fact that banner deserves to be hanging somewhere in a field specifically versus a training facility. But walk us through the emotions that you go through when you look at that thing and you think about, hey, I was a part of something cool like that.
I'm honestly glad it's in there. I look at that every day when we walk in. We spend a majority of our season in there, right? Like, we were in there from late October to we're still in there now. Like, we'll get out of there hopefully in a couple weeks, but it's like, it's looking up and it's like knowing that we earned that. We got that. That's ours now. No one can take that from us, and it's going to hang there, and people are going to walk in there and they're going to see that every time they open that door, and that's a really good feeling.
In your eyes, looking ahead at 2024, and specifically if you can get out your crystal ball and look ahead to May, what do you got to do to be repeat champions?
I think really the regular season is just finding our footing, finding out who we are again, and then the most important part is that one weekend. It's being locked in on that one weekend, 4 games, 5 games, however many it is, and it's playing our best ball in those games. The regular season is just a warm-up to get to that point. Right? Like, it's showing who we are and then executing. And I really think we have the capability to do that again. I think we have a lot of players that are locked in, that are focused, and that are hungry. Like, we have a lot of young guys that they didn't get to experience that last year, and I know they're hungry and they want that feeling. I want that feeling again too. I came here, I was like, by the time I'm done, I want to win one. And now I got 3 years left, and I'm like, why not another? The next ring's the best. And I'm really, really excited.
Now you're just getting selfish. A couple more for you. It's kind of a spin on a question that I ask a lot of athletes. It's about going back into like the places where you grew up and giving that one piece of advice. But especially as somebody who's gone into it as now the third-year guy, what are some of those big pieces of advice or words of wisdom that you're passing along to those JV guys, those guys who are just starting their Dino jerseys, Dino journeys specifically?
That's a great question. I think the biggest thing for me, my favorite piece of advice I've ever got was from my dad, and it was, no one else is going to be your biggest supporter. Like, you have to do it for yourself, and you have to be the person that's cheering for you every step of the way, and that's ensuring that you continue the right way on your journey. And I think I've done a really good job of that. Like, I was never meant to be here, and I just kept pushing, I kept working, and I'm still achieving more every time I step out there, and that's really the goal, is just keep getting better and keep making more memories.
Hopefully we get to see a few more before the season's out, and maybe even in Weyburn coming up in the summer. One more question for you before we let you go. It's one we ask everybody. What does the game of baseball mean to you?
It's everything to me. This is the thing I probably love most, other than like my family, my friends, and all that. It's like, this game has given me so much. Friendships that will last forever, memories that will last forever. And it's something that I get to do and is a privilege to be able to get to do, especially now at the college level. And it's everything. It is everything. It's like, I'm obsessed with baseball, right? Like, it's not just a game to me. It is an obsession. And it's just getting better every time I step out there, learning new things every time you get out there. You see something new every single baseball game you play. And it's learning the game, getting better at the game, because just being a student of the game is the most important thing to me, and learning from every time I step out there. Yeah.
We had a lot of fun being able to catch up. Looking forward to doing it again, officially and unofficially, as we always do. Ethan, congrats on all the success you had last year, continued success this year and beyond, and thanks so much for joining us here on the show.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Next up is Zaden Wake of the Prairie Baseball Academy Dawgs. He's one of just a handful of returning players who almost all say that the theme in the dugout is unfinished business after a year where they thought they should have won it all. Wake, who is from Winnipeg, has an interesting story himself as he was challenged by injury last year and is hopeful to be a bigger presence in 2024.
Zaden, thanks so much for joining us here on the show.
Thanks for having me.
CCBC season is almost here. How excited are you to finally get things going officially?
It's been a long wait for the off season to be over, I'll tell you that. I'm ready to go. I'm excited with the group we got as well.
Speaking of that group, you've been able to play a few preseason games to get a look at the team around you. Give us your scouting report. What are you seeing out of this year's squad so far?
This year, I think we're a bit of a younger team, so it's been a bit of a struggle for us to kind of play how we want to play. But I think we learned exactly what we needed to learn preseason to take it into the regular season and click.
When it comes to that younger team and you being a bit of a veteran presence there, what are you telling them? What are you guiding them along with to make sure that they hit the ground running when that first game happens?
Well, it's just like a big mental thing. Everyone's like, all the young guys, it's like they're so used to how high school ball's played and whatever, and they get to the college level and their heart starts racing and their brain starts running a million miles an hour. So it's just kind of a like slow everything down and like take a deep breath, control yourself kind of thing. That's kind of the main thing that we've been trying to preface from the veterans that we have so far.
Talk a little bit about the mental game as well. Everybody knows that baseball is a game of failure, but when you're at that level and you're playing collegiately, it can sometimes, I assume, get to your head a little bit. So how do you slow things down? How do you get them to accept that, hey, not everything is going to go your way, especially in the first couple of weeks kind of thing?
Yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, just going off what our coaches tell us, it's like you're here for a reason. Like we know that you can play and everything will come together at one point, but if it doesn't, then you can't let it get to your head. You can't get frustrated, and you can't lose your cool or whatever it is. It's just like it'll click, and you're there for a reason. That's kind of the main mindset.
Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about the season's a weird one because it is a grind. It's also really short as well, and so how much of it is not taking the results of each weekend so seriously and making sure that you're improving week after week so that you are at your best when it comes to CCBC championship time?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. We were actually just talking about that yesterday. It was kind of a thing where it's like we want to win the last game of the year, so we were trying to make it a big statement this year that it's not going to be what your stats are from weekend to weekend. It's going to be how many wins are on the board. That's exactly what we were just talking about like yesterday at practice. So, we're trying to take our focus away from our stats as it is and more on like the wins as it is.
Mm-hmm. On a personal level, what are you seeing out of your game that maybe has improved from last season?
Well, obviously last season I was still dealing with a bit of a injury, so I was playing with a huge knee brace on and whatever, but I finally got that off this summer, which has been nice and allows me to move how I want to move, and I think it's really translated into my defense and offense. So it feels really good.
Do you have any expectations of yourself heading into this season?
Honestly, I want to be the best player I can be for our team, and I want to be a leader for us in any way I can, and that's about all I got in that regard.
Mm-hmm. In talking to a few guys around the team, including Coach Hubka, it feels sort of like there might be a bit of unfinished business after last year finished the way that it did. What's your gut telling you about the way this season's going to transpire and the way that you want to come back from last season?
You're not wrong. There is unfinished business last year. The way we went out was pretty tough, but my gut is telling me that this is the team to do it. I think just based on watching everyone play, and everyone wants it this year. Like it seems like we all have a collective mindset that we want to win that last game of the year, which is huge for team morale and the motivation that we're going to come with this season.
what needs to happen to get there between now and then? What kinds of things are you looking for specifically to see you get to the point where you can win that last game of the year?
Oh, I mean, it's just consistently getting better, I guess. It's just like if we take a step backwards, then let's not beat ourselves up, and we'll get back to the drawing board, and we'll find a way to fix it. But I think just based off of team chemistry so far, I mean, there's really no way that we'll be able to take a step back, in my opinion. I think we've got the group to do it.
And the preseason rankings have you guys as number 2, so it's certainly a no step back by any stretch of the imagination. Let's go back in time a little bit here and talk about your upbringing in baseball. You're a product of Winnipeg. How did you get into the game in the first place?
Well, I think I was about 5-6 years old, and obviously my dad was a high-level baseball player out of Manitoba as well, and we used to watch games together all the time, and in particular, I used to love watching Derek Jeter. That was one of my favorite players growing up. I know that might be a bit of a hot take, but I love the way that he played and whatnot, and when I was growing up, I kind of wanted to play like him and got into T-ball or whatever it was at a young age, and ever since then, I fell in love with the game.
Were you a multi-sport guy growing up, or was it all baseball all the time?
No, I was everything under the sun. I played hockey till I was about 14, played volleyball, basketball, badminton, still play golf here and there. Like, basically anything you could mention, I've probably done it.
When did it turn for you when you said, okay, this is more than just a game of fun, and hey, I can maybe chase a collegiate career out of this, or more?
I think I was about 15 years old, and I was having a conversation with my dad about what I wanted to do going forward with my life, and we were still between kind of the hockey and baseball, and I knew I wanted to pursue one of them, but I knew I had to make a decision because it's pretty tough to do both. So we had a conversation, and ended up picking baseball, and we ended up talking to Badlands Academy over in Oyen, which is where I ended up going for my grade 11 and 12 year. And from there I knew it was baseball.
How tough was that to make that decision to go a couple of provinces over and make that transition into it's going to be baseball and I'm going to dedicate my life to this thing?
I mean, it was tough, but it just at the end of the day, it felt like the right decision because I was doing something that I loved. But obviously, when you're 15 years old and you're moving 2 provinces away, leaving your family, it's kind of tough. But my billet family over there made it really easy to adjust to the new life, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm. As far as PBA is concerned, what's that program meant to you in your development, not only as a ball player, but as a human being as well?
It's great. I mean, it's basically taught me, it's taught me limitless things about how I am as a person and how I'm going to be as a person going forward. It's one of those things where it's like you don't realize it until you're gone, but it makes you tough. It makes you realize how important the team around you is. I don't even know how to put it into words. It's so beneficial, and I really don't have enough praise for the coaches and what they do here.
Looking back on your young career to this point, do you have any favorite memories or moments on the ball field where you went, man, I can't believe I'm here getting to do this?
I'd say honestly, playing down in Vegas for the first time, my first year against CSM. I think that was pretty cool because I was a freshman on our varsity team. I wasn't really expecting to play a whole lot, and ended up getting an AB against a guy that was sitting 98 to 101, committed to Nebraska for the next season. So I was kind of in a bit of shock, and I don't even know, I was shitting my pants almost, and ended up drawing a walk, and kind of when I got to first base, I was like, wow, that was incredible.
Conversely, you talked about the injury. It might be the answer to this question, but what's been the biggest obstacle or hurdle that you've had to overcome over the course of your career to this point?
Oh, 100% the injury. I mean, going down, I can remember it like it was yesterday, the first regular season game of my first year. I ended up fighting my way for the starting spot, and third inning and double play ball, bases loaded, would have got us out of there, and just made a wrong turn with a knee and blew it out. And my first instinct was calling time, and so so the runs didn't all score and whatever. So, yeah, I mean, going from that, and it was a long process to come back, because it was a grade 2 tear of the MCL, so it wasn't enough to get surgery, but it was enough to where it was damn near all gone. So it was just a long road of physio, and it was a mental battle for sure, because it was like, you don't know if you want to trust it or not, and it took a while to get back, but I'm glad that I am now.
Talk about that mental grind. I mean, physically, obviously, you're trying to do the rehab and trying to get it back into game shape, but how challenging was that mental game? Especially, you mentioned like just even being able to trust it and make that turn again, with that thought in the back of your mind, like, hey, this thing could pop.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's always there. Honestly, up until this fall, it was always there. I mean, even in playing summer ball and just back home, I was kind of nervous. I was like, I don't want to do anything to hurt this. But it wasn't until I injured it 2022, so it didn't take me until the end of 2023 to trust it. So it really was a bit of a mental grind to get back and trust it. But I was just talking with the coaches, and they were trying to help me as much as they could with the mental side of things. But I mean, there's only so much they can do. It started with me, but we finally got it figured out, which was great.
Did it have an impact on your ability to hit as well? And did that was that a bit of an adjustment as well?
100%, because it's like you're doing something you've been, like, it's a huge muscle memory thing, and all of a sudden you add this huge knee brace, and you're stepping in a box, and it's all you're thinking about at first, at least. And it was just like, I don't know, it kind of just felt different, and like when you stride or when you twist, and it didn't feel right. It never did. So it was a huge adjustment to make, and I finally made it in the playoffs of last season. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. It was tough.
How excited are you to have a healthy season in front of you and to be able to kind of put that all behind you and go, okay, we're back to the way I want to be?
Oh, I couldn't be more excited, if I'm being honest. I've been waiting since I started playing collegiate ball. I've been waiting for this type of season, and I hope I can stay healthy, and I hope all our teammates can stay healthy as much as we can, even though it's a tough grind in a short season to stay healthy. But I hope we can, and I hope I can. And I think that if we stay healthy, then that last game of the year is ours for sure.
Mm-hmm. And beyond that, you've got some pretty exciting stuff coming up. You got a summer with the Lethbridge Bulls coming up. Talk about the level of excitement of getting to play some summer collegiate ball as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a new experience for sure, and it's gonna be something to adjust to, obviously, because it's a lot of baseball and not a lot of time, basically playing every day, which is something I'm not really used to, and a lot different from going to Manitoba summer ball when you got the one game a week, and you got some of the guys rolling up with a 6-pack of beers and having a good time. But yeah, I'm excited to do it because I'm ready to go down south, and I think this will be a good prep for it.
Speaking of down south, that is University of Arkansas Monticello. How excited are you about that next step in the baseball journey and taking your game to the next level?
Yeah, I was really excited, and I was really grateful for the opportunity that they gave me, and I think it's going to be great. It seemed like a pretty good fit for the program, and they were really welcoming, and I'm really hoping that it goes well down there because I really like their coaching staff. So.
Well, and UAM has a bit of a connection with PBA from the past, so how much are you leaning on maybe some of those connections from the past or even the coaching staff at PBA to say, here's what you can expect heading down there?
Yeah, it was kind of a coaching staff thing. I mean, Coach Ryan McDonald was the kind of the guy that talked me through the whole process and what they do down there. So I'm really hoping there should be no surprises, but they were also really open with me down there, and they kind of told me exactly what they wanted from me, and they told me kind of how they run things down there. So I should feel pretty comfortable going down there.
Very cool. A couple more for you before we let you go. The first one is around those kids who are seeing you around the ballpark. Maybe you get to go back home to Winnipeg and they're asking for advice or words of wisdom to get them to follow in your footsteps kind of thing. What are those words of advice or those pieces of words of wisdom to get them to that next level?
I'd say get in the gym, stay in the cage, and I'd say probably believe in yourself more than anything, because I feel like that's where a lot of kids will lose themselves, or maybe it's like a bad coach, or whatever it would be. But if you always have that self-belief that you can make it to that next level more often than not, you will get to that next level.
How much of that played into you coming back from your injury, as well as just being able to believe in yourself and go, okay, I got this?
Oh, 100%. It took a while for me to gain it back, but once it came around, it was like, it felt business as usual when playing the game I love, and it was huge. I mean, like, it takes a while to gain it back, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's all that really matters, is that it is back. So.
For sure. Here's the final question we've got for you, Zaden. It's one we ask everybody. What does a game of baseball mean to you?
A game of baseball, it's everything. I mean, it's everything that I've known growing up, and I don't even know what I'm going to do with myself when I'm ready to let it go. I don't know. I mean, it's everything to me.
Well, hopefully you don't have to let it go anytime soon. Zaden, congratulations on the success to this point, on the rehabilitation. Hopefully you have a great season at PBA, continued success going forward, and thanks again so much for joining us here on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
And finally, Reece Devlin was a workhorse for the Edmonton Collegiate Hawks last year. He went 2-3 with a 3.02 ERA in 8 games, including a couple of gems against the Alberta teams in April. The hometown product knows all about the Battle of Alberta and says the Hawks shouldn't be overlooked heading into this year as they continue to make strides towards a championship.
Reece, thanks so much for joining us here on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
How excited are you to finally get things going and get the CCBC season underway?
I'm super excited. Honestly, I'm sick of being inside in the indoor practices. Getting outside is going to be fantastic, and the competition is going to be great. I'm very excited.
You've had a chance to see the roster that you're going to be fielding. You've had a chance to do some traveling over the last couple of weeks as well, get in some tune-up games and that kind of thing. Put on your Scouts hat for a second. What do you see out of your team so far?
Talent. This is the most talented group that this team has had in its very short tenure, to be fair. But we have a lot of talent at a lot of positions. It's going to be a question mark every time someone is writing a lineup card about who it could be, because there's so many guys that are that strong in that position.
Talk a little bit about that growth and maturation over the last few years here, because as you mentioned, it's a program that's still fairly young and yet obviously turned some heads last year, is obviously entering the season now ranked 4th in the preseason polling by the coaches. I mean, there's a little bit of expectation riding along with this fairly young team.
Yeah, and honestly, the expectations come from ourselves. We don't see ourselves as a 4th place team. But the thing is, we have to go and prove that we aren't. We have to go and earn better spots. We have to go prove that we are who we say we are, which is a top team in the league.
Talk a little bit about last year and what you saw out of that group and what led to the success that you did have during the course of the season.
Our success last year came from guys stepping up in big spots. We had a few injuries, and guys came in immediately, hit the ground running. Everyone had each other's backs. It was a huge team environment everywhere we went. We had guys picking each other up, making sure everything was good in and outside of baseball, which is just as important. And that's really the team aspect really made our success that year.
Obviously, the key is to not just have a good regular season, but then you get that final weekend, and you did well, but you didn't get the final belt. You didn't get that final win, so to speak. What did you learn from that, though, and maybe learn from that adversity that you hope to bring into this coming season?
What I learned is that you cannot take a team or a game for granted. There's so many things that can happen so quickly, especially with the short season and condensed playoffs that the CC has. We had guys get hurt at the wrong time, and really just we start to ease up and think a game is going to be easier than it was, and there's no bad team, honestly. So it kind of taught us that there's not going to be a time that we can take our foot off the gas, so to say.
Mm-hmm. One of those teams that benefited from that was the eventual champion, the University of Calgary Dinos. They're a team that I don't know if anybody had real expectations about them winning a championship other than themselves, maybe. And even as returning champs, they're still ranked third. Does that kind of fuel maybe the rivalry a little bit for those who were born and raised, or there's a lot of guys who are Albertans here, so that Battle of Alberta CCBC style probably is in effect, and then you add PBA to the mix, and there's some pretty good ball to be played here in Alberta, isn't there?
It's the ball we have in the CC teams in Alberta is extremely good. The rivalry between us and Calgary goes without saying. It's the classic Edmonton-Calgary rivalry, and we did well against them last year. Just it's teams in the playoffs that always do well. In Lethbridge, or PBA, I believe we split our series with them last year. PBA is always going to be a good program, no matter which players they lose, which players they get. They work hard and know how to get things done.
So going back to the dugout right now, and as mentioned, you've had a chance to get a feel for how everybody's playing, that kind of thing. What's the vibe in the room right now? What's sort of the mojo feeling like right now as you get into the crunch time before the regular season gets going here?
Our dugout vibe is good. Everyone is honestly pretty twitchy to be outside. Our dugout feel is we're going to have to find our balance between being calm and being loud, crazy, and energetic in the dugout, so to say. But we got to find our happy medium. What we need to find, we're gonna be okay, but you just got to find our happy place.
Mm-hmm. When you look at the roster, I know one name that obviously sticks out is Halen Knoll, and his return is going to be huge. Is it going to be a pitching heavy team? Is it a hitting heavy team? What do you see this team being in terms of an identity?
From our very short sample size of spring games that we had just last week, our pitching was very strong. I feel like that might be what we're seen as a pitching heavy team, but our hitters are exceptional. We have a lot of mature guys and young guys who act mature at the plate. I feel like our team's going to be an all-around team where it's just going to be scrappy, looking to get every single chance that we have and run with it.
On a personal level, you're entering your third year with the Hawks. Talk a little bit about your expectations of yourself and some of the things that you hope to maybe accomplish along the way, whether it be statistical or otherwise.
I'm just hoping to build off of the year I had last year. I walked a few more guys than I hoped, but I still had good numbers on paper. But ultimately it comes down to winning baseball games and winning a championship. So as long as whatever my role is this year, whether it's a reliever, a starter, or anything in between, just coming in and giving our team support to win a game is the biggest thing I'm looking for.
As one of the veterans on the team, what kinds of things are you passing along to those young up-and-coming guys, those first years who are maybe now getting their footing into what the CCBC is all about?
I've been telling a lot of guys that taking care of your bodies is probably the most important thing. You got school, then 4 games in a weekend, and practices all in between that taking care of yourselves and making sure that you're not making the game too big. You're still holding the bat in your hands. There's still a guy with the ball. It's not a completely different game. It's still baseball. So just go out, relax, and keep playing the game.
Mm-hmm. Got a few background questions for you, so to speak. We like to go back in time and into your beginnings of baseball. Tell us a little bit about how you got into the game in the first place.
Honestly, for me, baseball was never my number one priority. it was always hockey growing up as a young Canadian. Baseball was really just something I played in the summer between hockey and whatever other sport that I'd be playing. But once I reached high school, I realized I could go a while with this baseball thing. So kept going with that, and now that reaches where we're at now.
Do you remember the point where it became kind of a reality to you, where you went, okay, maybe this baseball thing is worth chasing. Maybe I've got a future here?
Yeah, I feel like it was, honestly, maybe not till my, in the first year of the Hawks, when I was asked to go to Fort McMurray, that I realized I didn't think I was that great. I was lucky enough to get asked to go down and pitch well in a league that I watched growing up, which was a bit of an out-of-body experience for me. So being on a team in that league kind of proved to myself, like, hey, you're pretty good and you're better than you thought you were.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about that a little bit. You're the Edmonton kid on an Edmonton team. Remember the first time that you stepped foot on the mound at Remax? Did you have to kind of take that step back and go, okay, this is the place that I grew up watching ball, and now here I am front and center, ready to throw my first one?
Yeah, that was a little bit weird. Especially I used to watch Prospects games and Capitals games at Remax, be sitting in the crowd, being how I must have been around 10 years old or something, watching games, and then running out in the field. Now it's almost, you can almost picture yourself like you were that kid watching a guy on the mound, and now it's you being that example for everyone else.
Is it surreal to a certain extent as well that you get to be the guy who, if there's kids in the park, whether it's with the Hawks or with when it was Fort Mac or Sylvan, and you're the one signing autographs as well and chatting with the kids and being a bit of a role model in the community itself as well?
Oh, it's absolutely a surreal feeling, because I remember being that kid who would go down and ask for an autograph of a player, and now talking with fans, young or anything in between, you never expect that to be what you do in a community, and being around it is one of my favorite things about the game.
Talk a little bit about favorite memory or moment on the park where you went, I can't believe I'm here doing this.
Honestly, I think it has to be the combined no-hitter that happened in Fort McMurray, where I opened the game through the first 2 innings perfect. Then I remember Travis Cole came in, pitcher from Arizona, came in through the rest of the game no hit, and it was kind of surreal, that moment, because it was against Edmonton in Fort McMurray for the first no-hitter in Fort Mac history, and throwing that game against Edmonton was weird, because it was a team that I had watched growing up, but Fort Mac picked me instead of Edmonton, I guess. Mm-hmm. So kind of cool to just have that experience, and that's the only one I've ever been a part of, and it was a surreal feeling when it happened.
Conversely, we talk about the good stuff. I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about some of the things that stood in the way, the hurdles that you had to overcome. From an athletic perspective, what were some of the biggest challenges or hurdles that you did have to overcome when it comes to baseball?
One of the biggest things was I never took the extra work outside of practices seriously, and it took me till my second or even into my third year really to start taking workouts and the recovery aspect any type seriously, especially because technically my freshman year was in COVID. Mm-hmm. So there was nothing. I could stay home, and I put on way too much weight during that off season. So the next year when there was a season, I had to really start taking things seriously. Lost a bunch of weight and put on muscle, well, put on good weight as in muscle. So that was my biggest problem, but it's just learning the game as well, learning how to pitch against college hitters.
Couple more for you. Let's say you get to talk to those young kids from Edmonton who are having dreams of following in your footsteps. What's that one piece of advice or words of wisdom you'd offer to them to get to that next level?
The biggest thing that I say is baseball is still a game. Like, doesn't matter where you play it or at what level. You see professionals, you see our guys, you see them all smiling and laughing and just enjoying the game for what it is. You're outside in 20, 30 degree weather, just hitting a rock with a stick. It's the most fun you could have as a kid, as an adult, or anything. I just always tell them, just enjoy the game you're playing.
Mm-hmm. Great advice. And the final question we ask of everybody, what does the game of baseball mean to you?
Oh gosh, this is hard. I don't want to call it an outlet, but it's easy. It's like everything that I know how to do well is all at the baseball field. I know how to throw a ball well. It's comforting being at the field. It feels like a second home, so to say.
That's fantastic stuff. Well, Reece, really appreciate the time. Congratulations on all the success you've had to this point. Continued success with the Hawks and beyond. And thanks again so much for joining us here on the show.
Thank you so very much for having me. It was fantastic.
Thanks again to the Battery Boys, Logan Wedgewood and Sean Robbins, as well as players Ethan Webster, Zaden Wake, and Reece Devlin for joining us for the CCBC season preview extravaganza this week. We look forward to providing more updates from around the league in the weeks ahead as each team takes aim at the championships in Lethbridge during the May long weekend. As always, a tip of the cap to our platinum supporters, the Okotoks Dawgs, for everything they do for us and for baseball in Alberta. For more on our incredible teammates and to get more information on joining us as a sponsor, head to albertadugoutstories.com/supporters. Until next time, thank you for all of your support online, on social, and on air of Alberta Dugout Stories.